we're going to talk about that today to see if that's actually true. Okay? We're going to see if that's actually true. My name is Dr. Howard, and this is Kenneth Smith, and we are going to do a presentation we call Encouraging Women Leaders. Just a couple housekeeping items first. We do have someone who is doing some video for us. Please pretend he doesn't even exist right now. I'm sure he'll be nice and quiet and professional and so on. So we just wanted to have some shots of what we were trying to do here. But another thing is that usually this is something we have a couple of hours to go over. I mean, there are so many things that we could cover, and to do it in a 60-minute presentation is we're really just scratching the surface of some of the topics and issues that we would normally discuss. So I wanted to make that clear as well. We're going to be going kind of fast as we go through the presentation. Mr. Smith and I, we work together in many different capacities. We served in high school together in Montgomery County, Maryland. We worked together as adjunct professors in the sociology department at Prince George Community College, and we also work together in a nonprofit organization called Hugh Initiatives. So we engage typically young men in workshops just like these on leadership, awareness, college and career planning, etc. And we started to think, if we are about strengthening the larger community, then how can we leave some of these topics undiscussed with young women as well, particularly with our background in sociology, and we always seem to come upon the topics of gender and sexual orientation, gender inequality, etc. at the same times in the semester. So we started putting these presentations together, started bringing our classes together and saying, can we introduce this to a larger group of people, have a more powerful dialogue about these particular issues? And so that's why we're here today. One other thing that's important to mention, there was another motivating force. Mr. Smith has a daughter, okay, so I think that's pretty important to mention. I have three daughters. So I'm very moved by this particular topic because as I think about raising my daughters, what are some of the things that they need to be prepared to deal with as they move in and adjust through society? Okay, so we're going to let the conversation begin with Mr. Smith, and then I'll jump back in later on in the presentation.
And at any time, if you want to, you have a comment, question, comment, concern, address it. We can have a conversation as we do this. So I also run a youth organization called Super Leaders in the DC metro area, and it's co-ed. Now, the nonprofit that he runs, we deal strictly with males, and we talk to young males all the time. And with the program that I run that is co-ed, last year, at the beginning of the year, we had about 30 strong students, male, female, a few more females than males. By the end of the year, what happened right before my eyes, and I didn't even see it, is that I had one young lady left in my program. And it didn't hit me until we had our last ceremonial meeting, and Fatimata's her name, she stood strong. And I was taken aback because here I am, consider myself a feminist, I teach these courses, I teach co-ed courses, I work with women's programs, but somehow the young ladies that were in my program just sort of disappeared. And I had to look in the mirror, reflect, and say there was some unconscious blind bias that I must have been doing throughout the course of the year, that my other young ladies just dropped out of the program slowly. And they would see me in the hallway, Mr. Smith, how you doing? There was nothing they held against me personally. But I was doing something that I wasn't aware of. And I started to reflect and think about, what did you do wrong? And then I'm thinking about my daughter, she'll be 6 next month. And I see some of the behaviors that she exhibits at home. My wife is a college professor, is a feminist. We're very concerned about making sure our daughter knows her voice and she knows how to use her voice in the appropriate situation. She's almost 6, she knows how to give a handshake with people, the whole thing. But yet I see some behaviors that she exhibits that are stereotypical behaviors of girls. And my wife and I, we have these conversations and we question, where is Joy getting these behaviors from? So here's where we started. We're looking at stereotypes. Ladies and gentlemen, good to see the men here as well. What's a stereotype? Don't give me an example. What's a definition? Because we can all give wonderful examples. Can you give me a definition on what you think a stereotype is? Yes.
It's like a general assumption on a group of people based on your observation of them. I
need to sit down. You need to come on up here and do this. Very good. Excellent definition. Pretty much what you said. Yours is more detailed. I like yours better. All right. A set of ideas based on distortion, exaggeration, and oversimplification. They appear throughout any society. We humans, we all adhere to stereotypes in one way, shape, or form. Does anybody know where the word stereotype derives? What's its origins? Its root? Somebody take a guess. Go ahead.
Latin?
Latin, Greek, okay. Do you know what it means? It's stereos. Anybody know what it means, where it comes from? All right, it means, excuse me, hard or solid. What does it have to do with what we know to be stereotypes? Hard or solid? And I'm simplifying it, yes.
It's hard to change.
Yes. Once a stereotype becomes embedded within a culture, they become solidified, and they're very difficult to change. Now, how they begin, how they get started, we can sit here all day depending on what group we're talking about where these stereotypes derive. But once a stereotype is attached to a group, and it's within that culture, we begin to play on and use these stereotypes in ways that are very subtle. Almost like, a fish probably doesn't think about the water it swims in. We typically don't think about the air we breathe because we take it for granted. We use stereotypes the same way. Now, why do we use them? Part of human socialization that requires us to classify objects and events into categories. Stereotypes make it easier to organize people into categories, thus, important, lessening the cognitive load we have to process. As human beings, when we meet people, we encounter situations that we're unfamiliar with, automatically we process this by using stereotypes to try to process as much information as possible about something or someone we may not know. And we categorize things. This is human nature. This is evolutionary why we do this. But what's important is that we understand how we use stereotypes. We're aware of them before we can begin combating them. Okay? Now, what are some of the problems? They oversimplify a wide range of differences among people. Stereotypes transform assumptions about particular realities of groups of people into realities. I have realities in quotes for a reason. Perception becomes reality. Anybody in here drive? Okay, for those of us that are drivers, you're driving, you're doing the speed limit, you see a police officer in your rearview mirror, how do you react? You slow down, your heart starts to beat, you get a little nervous, you check the speedometer, did I stop at the stop? You start going through this mental checklist and you get nervous. Police officer's not thinking about you whatsoever, but you perceive this authority figure and it has real consequences on your behavior. Perception becomes reality. Stereotypes work the same way. Stereotypes are used to justify the position of those in power, and stereotypes perpetuate social prejudice and inequality. Let me go back to this. Can you give me some stereotypes that we have of women? In this culture, in American culture, American society, give me some stereotypes. We've defined it, give me one.
All guys think the same.
All?
They think that all guys think the same.
All guys? All right, let's focus on women. All right.
No, I'm saying.
No.
Oh. Oh, stereotypes that women think they're all guys.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Okay, the stereotype?
Inadequate.
Women are inadequate.
Submissive.
Submissive. Anyone else? Give me another stereotype.
Most men think women are manipulative.
Manipulative. You said most men think women are manipulative. Do you think other women think women are manipulative? Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, women buy into those stereotypes as well, right, as men. Yes?
Overly emotional.
Emotional. Good. Give me one more, someone. These are good stereotypes.
Black people are always late.
All right, well, yeah, CP time. And we were pressed to make sure we started this on time because we don't want to buy into that. Give me one more about women. One more about women. Yes?
They're less intelligent.
They're less intelligent. Good. Now, listen to the stereotypes that you all said. Look at the two of these lists that I have here. Do you agree with them? Now, we're not saying they're real, but do you agree that they're stereotypes? Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Good. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did we not just say everything on this list, or most of this stuff? Okay. Now keep in mind we're talking about stereotypes and perceptions. And I want you to sort of take a mental photo of this list, because we're going to come back to it as we go through this presentation. Is there anybody that either disagrees with anything that's up here, or you need further explanation? What does that mean? Can you explain such and such further? Or do we all get it? We got it. Okay. Good. All right.
Okay. So, where do we learn these stereotypes from? Is a question that I would normally pose if I had more time to go through the discussion piece of this. But when we think about where the stereotypes come from, oftentimes they come from our socialization, the way we're raised, the way we are trained. I'm using that word, the way we are trained to think about the world and deal in the world. If we were to begin from this first bullet point right here, birth, childhood, and family, okay? If we think about the birth process, and I believe it's around 4 or 5 months in which you're able to tell the sex of a child, okay? If you had to guess, what would you say if I were to ask a man, what do you want that child to be, male or female? What would the man say? Why? Why? Because there may be some specific things.
Me?
Yes.
First of all, because he wants his name to carry on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is that valid?
Yeah.
Maybe we don't want to go down, because that'll open up a large conversation. Go ahead.
He can also want to raise his child different than the way he was raised.
That's a good point.
Most men want to raise what they are. So if I was born a man, it's easier to raise a man versus being a man raising a girl.
Okay. Are women as specific with that choice, do you believe? Do you think they... And when I ask this question, usually the women are more so along the lines of, I'll take whatever's healthy. You know, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, etc. Okay, so it seems to be a difference in perception about things from the very beginning, once the child is in the womb. But we also have to think about if we provide certain things for this child once it's born. We put the boys in what color? Blue. Put the girls in what color? Pink. When we talk about toys, for the girls, what kind of toys do we buy little girls? Barbie dolls. What else? Baby dolls, kitchen sets,
Stuffed animals.
easy bake oven, little crafts and beads. I have so many beads over my house, it's ridiculous. But if you have a boy, what kind of toys do you have? Trucks? Legos. What do you do with Legos? Build. You build. Keep that in mind. Little blocks you build. Okay? And so we have to think about how individuals are being trained because you learn through play. So we have to think about how we're training individuals from a very young age about who they are supposed to be. Okay? In fact, let me give you a quick story. My oldest daughter, she's very much into, like I said, making these bracelets, and I see her now spending more time in the bathroom, trying to do her hair differently. She's 10. My youngest is 3. She's into Princess and the Frog tiara person, and she walks around with a little tiara on. It's so funny. And my middle daughter, the other day she says to me, "Daddy, can you buy me something?" I'm like, "Depends on what it is." She said, "Can you buy me a shovel?" I'm like, okay. You know, I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, because at first my first sign was, what do you need a shovel for? Why do you? But the fact that she wanted to do something outside of her typical gender norm, I was excited about. She actually wanted to build a ramp so that her and her friend could try and jump their bikes in the backyard or what have you. But she asked for a shovel, which I thought was interesting. But we can see how our children are raised based on these instrumental tasks versus what we consider to be expressive tasks. And more specifically, when we go into education, instrumental, meaning the classes that a boy likes to take are something that either he can win or lose, so there's a definitive result at the end of what he does, or there's a finished product based on what he does. Girls are a little bit more expressive in terms of they typically enjoy the writing, the humanities, social sciences, those types of classes, particularly through adolescence. This may change in high school or what have you, but particularly through adolescence, those are the ways that we typically travel. With boys, if we were to talk to a boy and he said, hey, I'm very interested in writing poetry, and he's 7 or 8 years old, you'd be like, oh, that's great, because that's not normal. Well, I won't say normal, but that's typically not normal. Okay? Religion. And this is touchy. This is a touchy one. When you think about your particular religious institution, the person that stands in front of you is a man or a woman? Man or woman? Typically. The individuals who are in the audience, the congregation, if we had to say one was 65%, one was 35%, 65% would be what? Women. Okay, so is it fair for us to allow men to feel as though they can guide our spiritual direction? That's not a question I want you to answer, but it's a question I want you to think about. Because for years, we've allowed this to exist as if it's the way it's supposed to be. We haven't challenged it. And with that, we're saying that the man feels that he can do this because what? Because God is, in your mind, when you think of God, close your eyes, you think of God, what does God look like? A man. A man. So this all-powerful, all-knowing force has been assigned a gender. Okay, and with that gender, there are certain masculine traits that exist. Okay, so we're saying that there's more value to these masculine traits. These feminine traits may be devalued. We don't think of God maybe in a feminine way. We typically think of those masculine traits. That can be problematic for individuals. Media. We could probably spend the entire day talking about objectification, the beauty myth, the standards of beauty. What are the standards of beauty based on American society? Could be European. Give me physical form. Thin. Long hair, short hair? Typically long hair. Straight. What type of body shape? Like this or like this or like this? The hourglass shape. So there's certain images that we have in mind as to what the female body should look like. And there's this thing called self-objectification. Because this is not only men that have these particular images for women, but women have these particular images for women. And I don't think that men critique their bodies at the same rate that women do. Would you agree with me? Probably? Yeah. Okay. And with that being said, we are pushing women to be on a pedestal. Okay? And if we know anything about a pedestal, it's a small, confined space. Okay? So we're boxing ourselves in to meet a certain societal expectation, which oftentimes is devalued. This is ultimately where we're going now. As you all are preparing to graduate from school soon, probably go into the workplace, these are maybe where we'll go. Workplace and or family, wife, mother, etc., depending on what your plans. And I should mention this, teaching gender is teaching leadership, because I'm talking about these values that we're teaching young people, that we've been socialized into. And when you teach a specific gender, you're teaching that person to be a leader, and you may be teaching the other person to not be a leader, if you follow what I'm saying. Okay, so in the workplace, we know that women make what to every man's dollar? Anybody know?
50 cents.
Not 50 cents. That's not that bad. But it's bad. 77 cents. 77 cents. Okay? Why is that? Are men more skilled in something that, or are they smarter in something that they are allowed to earn more money that, what is it, 23 cents more than what a woman earns? What is it that allows a man to do that? You said something?
His body parts.
His body parts? What about his body parts? Is that something that we can work with? Tell me what you mean. In a job, what skill sets does a man have, or does he have skill sets that justify him earning 23 cents more?
He's just perceived to be better.
He's perceived to be better. He's perceived to be
He's not able to,
stronger.
have a family or get pregnant or anything, so he will never have to be displaced out of his job because
So you're saying
if fit to stay there.
So you're saying if he's an employer and I go to him and I'm saying, hey, I'm having a child, what's he going to say? Congratulations.
Right,
if you come to him and he's your employer, he's gonna start thinking about what?
That you're leaving,
This person's leaving,
your
how's my
marching.
productivity gonna change, who's gonna fill her position, how long she's gonna be out, once the child's in school, who's gonna be going to get the child gets sick at school, etc. I almost want to replace her based on those facts alone. So I'm definitely gonna pay her less because she can come to me and tell me that at any time. But the man typically is going to be okay with having a job. We're gonna make a point?
One point. Before my wife went into education, she worked in the private sector in human resources. And she used to train companies about the laws of human resources. And one thing she would often talk about is that during an interview process, the questions that are illegal to ask, particularly to women. So for example, and it's done in a very slick and smooth way. Casual conversation on your way out, thanks for coming for the interview. Plan on having a family? Or if they look at your finger, they see there's a ring. If they ask you any of those types of questions, but there's a series of questions, they're called screening questions, that are not supposed to be asked. Why can you not ask a woman, are you planning on starting, how long have you been married? Oh, congratulations. Are you thinking about starting a family? Very casual. Why can you not ask that question?
Would that be like some sort of discrimination as to whether they hire you or not?
Exactly. It's a screening question. And she would train, especially women and men, on how to diffuse that question. Instead of saying, you can't ask that question, that's illegal, you don't have a job. But there are ways to use language, everything from body language to the way you address the question and talking that question down without answering it. And there are a series of questions that should not be asked, but she would also train on how to counter the question and turn it into a positive. So that's very important. So you have to be careful, because for a man, that question would never be asked. You have a ring on your hand, on your finger, it's no big deal. All right, but for a woman, it's different implications. But that's how stereotypes play in. It's very subtle. Okay.
And since we're talking about this glass ceiling, this thing that is over women's heads oftentimes that they can't see, but prevents them from ascending to that position that they are interested in ascending to. That's based off of these stereotypes. That's based off of these perceived traits that women have that men differ from in certain areas. So that's what the glass ceiling comes from. And if we think about not only just the piece about maternity leave and these specific traits that men are supposed to be able to have that are better than women, we also have to think about just our own suppression of our ambitions. So if I were to ask the men, if I were to ask the men in the class, I'm going to offer you your ideal job. You have a spouse at home, you have 2 children. The job requires you to travel 3 weekends a month. Are you still taking the job? Most men's hands go up. If I ask that question or pose that scenario to a group of women, it's usually about 50-50. Okay? Let me do it right now. How many of you are taking a job? You have a husband, you have 2 small children, ages 3 and 5. This is your ideal job, I'm paying you what you want to earn, but you have to travel 3 weekends a month. How many of you are taking the job? How many of you are going to have a little bit of pause with taking that job? Okay, why? Just curious. Tell me about your reasoning.
Well, my reason, I'm very family oriented.
Okay.
So I'd rather be my whole issue when I'm married with 2 kids.
Okay. Okay, so you're family oriented. Anybody else want to? Go ahead.
I'm missing my children grow up.
Missing, so you would be concerned about missing your children grow up. Okay. Anybody else? I saw a lot of hands in that area. Anybody want to comment?
I'm the one who said I would take the job. I think honestly, it's only 3 weekends out of like a whole month. So you have the weekdays and you have 1 weekend. So it's not that big a deal, to be honest.
Okay, I'm gonna take you, then you, and then
I said I would be a little hesitant because those only 3 weekends, like during the week, usually children are on a strict schedule. And
Right.
like they go to school and
Good
you're
point.
already at
Good
work
point.
Monday through Friday. So the weekend would be that time for you to do things with your child. So you will only be limited to that 1 weekend to do things with your child. And if you have 2 daughters as a mother, you're like putting all of that responsibility on that father.
Okay.
I was gonna say exactly the same.
Go ahead.
I said I would take the job because I'm looking out for the future of my children, and I want to make sure they are financially stable as well as I am.
When I asked that question before to a group of women, I almost said, I'm not leaving my children with my husband. It was the funniest thing. She's like, are you kidding me? I'm not leaving my children with my husband. But I think when we talk about family, wife, and mother, and we think about where we are with women in the workplace as they are, and we think about this concept of a second shift. Anybody ever heard of that before? Second shift, where we're talking about women being in the workplace from 9 to 5, and then coming home and still having the lion's share of the domestic duties when they get home. So who primarily cooks dinner, who primarily does the dishes, who primarily helps with homework, who primarily bathes the kids, who primarily puts the kids to bed, reads them a story, irons clothes for the next day. All of those things. Typically, depending upon who your husband is, that may be the expectation. That's the norm. That's what a woman's supposed to do. Notwithstanding the fact that you've been at work all day. Okay? So I think we need to keep that in mind as we're talking about these particular matters, what we've been socialized into and how to begin to confront some of these particular norms. How do we disrupt these norms? Okay? So I'll turn it back over to Mr. Smith.
Show of hands, who considers themselves a feminist? Okay. Who does not consider themselves a feminist? Don't look around there, put your hand up. Okay, good. What is a feminist? And I always encourage and ask questions. Please ask. What is a feminist? Go ahead.
Well, to me, it will be not putting a limitation on women and believing they can succeed in any area, that just as much as a man can.
Okay, good.
And it's also not hating men also. So it's like, okay, feminists are not people who hate men. It's trying to like bridge that gap between women and men.
Yes.
Believing that they should get equal rights as men.
Okay. Simply put, a feminist is someone who believes in equality for women. I consider myself one. Doesn't mean you are feminine if a man is a feminist, but you just believe in equal rights for women. That's all it means. Now let me ask you this. During the 60s and 70s, there was a strong feminist movement. Do we still have a feminist movement today? Can anybody give me an example, if you said yes, how the feminist movement is manifesting itself in today's society? Can you point to something and say, this is what's happening? I mean, you don't see women marching. You don't hear about protests that often, women asking for equal rights. So then how is feminism, if it's still alive, is anybody out there fighting for equality for women, particularly in the workplace, trying to bridge this pay gap? Yes?
I think Oprah Winfrey, when she created all girls' school in South Africa for girls who had a low equal opportunity for education.
Good. All right, Oprah's an example. In the back?
I believe Hillary Clinton did when she took a stand for the presidential election, even though she didn't continue on, but she conjoined with Obama. So she basically had eyesight and let the nation know, you know, it's time for women to really start stepping up, and we do have a voice.
Good. Anyone else? It's Oprah. Hillary.
It's an organization. It's the award show is actually coming on this weekend. Black Girls Rock.
Right.
It's an organization that empowers women and gives them their props.
Okay. 3 examples. Very good. Let me show you this. Has anybody ever seen this woman before? Show of hands if you've seen this woman. Do you know who she is? I mean, her name is there, yes. Okay, Sheryl Sandberg. Yes. Do you know anything about her? Okay. Yes.
Just a little bit. I just came from Grace Hopper celebration as the keynote speaker, and this is a book that she just wrote. She's like majoring in like information technology, and so she kind of broadened it, not just on her work, but she was just like taking up rights for women, and she basically wanted more women in the technology field.
Okay. Close. How many of you have a Facebook page? All right. She's second in command at Facebook, right under Mark Zuckerberg. So she's the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Facebook. She runs Facebook. She's very powerful. By any objective measure, she's a powerful woman. Some people say she's the new face of feminism. And I'm sure after you leave this workshop, you're going to hear her name everywhere. We want to do this. We want to show you an interview, 10-minute interview with Sheryl Sandberg, and I think you'll find it interesting. As you're watching the interview, can I borrow this roll? You have this salmon card. If you would,